We are ANKA. You can support us with the Super Thanks button below. The Russian-Ukrainian war has intensified in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions over the last few months. Fighting continues in many cities in these regions. While Russian troops are weakening on many fronts, the Ukrainian army is getting stronger every day. Recently, the Ukrainian army carried out a successful operation against Russian invaders in the Donetsk region. The footage of the operation was recorded by drones. In these images shared on social media, it is seen that the Ukrainian army is targeting Russian Howitzers. 36 Howitzers are destroyed by missiles launched by the Ukrainian Air Force. Let's analyze the details of the successful operation and the destruction of the Russian military convoy in Donetsk. The Ukrainian army continues to monitor the movements of Russian troops in the occupied territories. Moreover, many of these images are recorded by unmanned aerial vehicles used for reconnaissance and observation. In a recording shared recently, it is seen that the Ukrainian Air Force destroyed the USSR-era 152mm howitzer M194-3 belonging to the occupying Russian troops in the Donetsk region. 36 howitzers are blown up by M982 Excalibur ranged and guided artillery shells. After this image, Russia's use of howitzers from the Soviet Union era became a hot topic. It was claimed that Russia, which fights with equipment used decades ago, has run out of new and modern technology equipment. Having suffered great losses against the Ukrainian army, Russian troops are organizing small-scale attacks in order to show their presence in the occupied territories. Russia is forced to reduce the number of major attacks day by day, because the Russian army is facing a serious ammunition problem. Russia has recently attacked the cities of Vodiane and Marinka in Donetsk Oblast. However, these attacks were weak enough to show that Russia was exhausted. The Ukrainian General Staff reported that the attacks in these areas were easily repelled. Another important development in Donetsk Oblast is the successful shooting of a Russian military convoy. The Ukrainian army does not let the Russian army breathe. Russian troops were moving with a military convoy including 9 armored vehicles in the Donetsk region where the war is raging. The Russian recruits were unaware that the Ukrainian Air Force was following them. The military convoy, which was recorded and located by unmanned aerial vehicles, was destroyed with a single shot. The Ukrainian army used the M270 MLRS multi-barrel rocket launcher system in this operation. This American-made rocket launcher system is much more powerful than HIMARS rocket launcher systems. The fact that it blew up a convoy of more than 10 vehicles with a single shot shows the power of the M270 MLRS multi-barrel rocket launcher systems. The Russian Air Force is unable to prevent Ukraine's airstrikes. The reason for Russia's losses in this attack is its lack of air defense systems and ammunition stockpiles. Russian leader Putin is making different plans because he cannot solve his real problem. Because Putin is trying to exonerate himself by blaming his problem on others. The biggest example of this was the dismissal of Sergei Surovikin, Russia's commander in charge of the invasion of Ukraine. In recent days, there has been another similar development. Colonel General Mikhail Teplinsky, the commander of the Russian Air Force, was dismissed. He was replaced by Oleg Makarevich. This development brought many criticisms. The Russian Defense Ministry said Teplinsky was an experienced commander and had a respected career. It criticized the appointment of Makarevich, an academic with no combat experience, in his place. Putin has faced many problems since he started the invasion of Ukraine. But instead of solving these problems, he has tried to create perceptions with reshuffles and statements. The facts have become impossible to hide. The number of soldiers lost by the Russian army in the occupied territories reveals this fact, such that Soviet forces lost only 15,000 soldiers during the Afghanistan war for 9 years. The Russian army, on the other hand, lost over 120,000 soldiers in less than a year of occupation of Ukraine. As can be seen from this comparison, Putin was not successful in his decision to invade. The developments in the region and the statements made by the Ukrainian General Staff show that The Russian army has suffered great losses. The Ukrainian General Staff made a new statement on January 21st. According to the statement, more than 300 wounded Russian soldiers were placed in Starobilsk City Hospital in Luhansk Oblast. The Russian army is losing ground in the war with hundreds of dead and wounded every day. Putin refuses to admit his failure in the war and points to other targets. However, in order to hide the failure of the war, the Russian army is also making false statements and propaganda actions are increasing day by day. Recently, Vladimir Rogov, the Russian occupation official of Zaporizhia Oblast, also made a false statement. Rogov stated that the Russian Pacific Fleet Marine Corps units carried out attacks in the Ulyaipole region. However, there was no such development in the region. With this false statement, Rogov may have aimed to hide the negativities on the front in the Zaporizhia region, because Ulyaipole region is located in Zaporizhia Oblast. Vladimir Rogov, the Russian occupation official of Zaporizhia Oblast, made another statement recently. According to the statement, Stepove, Novoandriivka, Novodanilivka, Malotokmachka, and Bilohiria regions were under Russian control. However, news from the region revealed that this statement was also a lie. Because clashes continue in these regions, Russia cannot hide its failure even if it hides behind lies. The failure of the Russian army and administration in the occupied territories causes Wagner Group boss Yevgeny Prigozhin to grow stronger. Recently, the Russian army did not help with the funeral of a Russian soldier who fought and died in a Wagner Group unit. The incident caused a huge uproar in Russia. In a letter, the mother of the dead soldier criticized the Russian army and administration and called Yevgeny Prigozhin the defender of Russia and the only person who was not indifferent to the fate of his family. Prigozhin, whose name has been heard on many issues since the beginning of the occupation, is becoming more and more well-known every day. According to allegations, Prigozhin is preparing for post-Putin politics. In the face of all Russia's failures and false statements, the Ukrainian army continues to be strengthened with military aid packages from Western and European countries. Dozens of countries are helping the Ukrainian army, but it is also the unity of the Ukrainian President Zelensky with the army and the people that makes it successful in the war. The Ukrainian army has retaken 70% of the territory occupied by Russian invaders since February 24, 2022. Zelensky's determination to win is visible to everyone. Ukraine is likely to take back all the territories occupied since February 23rd from the Russians very soon. But Zelensky's target is the Crimean Peninsula, occupied in 2014. Zelensky refers to Crimea in almost all of his statements. All Ukraine says that the war started with the annexation of Crimea and will continue until Crimea is cleared of the occupiers. Many developments await us in the new year. How do you interpret the spectacular ambush of the Ukrainian soldiers? What do you think about the false statements of Russian officials and propaganda actions in Russia? What do you think will happen in the occupied territories in 2023? We are curious about your views. Follow us for more updates. All rights to these videos belong to ANKA Daily News YouTube channel. Our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook usernames are @ANKADailyNews. Do not rely on any other social media publications. We legally fight all websites and channels that use it without our permission.